All right, News Talk 980 WXLM. I could not wait for these guys to come into the studio because literally since Thursday of last week, my whole life has changed somewhat for the better. There's no question about that. In the studio right now, Survival Systems USA, Inc. I've got Maria Hanna and I've got Christopher Judah. And Richard Martin is also here with us this morning. I'll start with you, Maria, if you can, just to give me a little background on you, how you got involved and your position at Survival Systems, Inc.
Okay, my background is actually in engineering, and I'm married to an active duty Navy officer who happened to get transferred to the Groton area when the facility opened in '99. And at the time, I was looking for something fun to do because engineering was getting kind of old, and the facility was doing something that I considered to be fun and exciting and very rewarding. Okay. So I got sucked in part-time, and it kind of went from there. I've held just about every job in the company, and now I'm the president, owner, and CEO.
All right. Christopher?
Actually, it kind of follows along the same lines of Maria. In my former life, I was in law enforcement, and that was in Alabama. I met Mr. Martin, who you're going to talk to momentarily, who introduced me to Survival Systems, and I got hooked. So I began teaching as an instructor at the Army base at Fort Rucker, Alabama. Okay. And in 2006, I moved up here and had, kind of like Maria, had moved up and is now the executive director of the company.
Now, I went into your office. You got way too many machine guns. M16s, guns all over the place.
I like my toys.
And Richard, you were actually in the pool with me.
My position with the company is quality assurance and standards. Basically, I just oversee the training operations to some degree for Survival Systems. I am a former Navy. I spent approximately 8 years in the Navy during Desert Storm. And then since then, I had been searching since I got out. That was in '94. I'd been searching for a sense of purpose. You kind of lose that after you get out of the Navy. Okay. But Survival Systems gave me that sense of purpose back, that I'm doing something, that I'm contributing in a positive way.
I hear that a lot from military people, that they lose that camaraderie when they get out, and that's a big thing they try to replace. So you've obviously replaced it because everybody in that building seems like they get along great together.
We've all drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, that's what we call it.
Literally, because you all had to get in that plane, didn't you?
Right, It's a requirement. Right. You have to go through the training before we'll even consider hiring you.
Before we get to what the place actually does, I want you to relive my experience, if you can, a little bit. And I'm talking to Richard again about what exactly happens when you go through this this quick training process that you guys put me through. I mean, from your point of view.
Well, yours yesterday was a little bit abbreviated because you're not actually receiving a certification. Sure. But basically what we did with you was I gave you a familiarization with what to expect. We don't want to throw somebody in there completely off guard without giving them some idea of what they're about to go through. So I just gave you that brief, about 15 minutes of information. You obviously filled out our liability waiver form and agreed to and consented to get into the simulator.
Yes.
So and then we changed, like you said, you put a flight suit on. We use the flight suit just because it's easier, and plus the pool, as you know, as you probably experienced with the chlorinated pool, if you put on your clothes, they'd probably be ruined after that fact. So we put you in the flight suit. Also, it's easier for us to deal with students in that manner.
Sure.
Put a helmet on you for safety, just because sometimes people bounce around a little bit before they get comfortable underwater. So then we put you in the simulator. We got in the pool, as you said. It was a little dark in there, and it is. We do simulate nighttime conditions because generally we want to do worst case scenario training. We want to put you in a situation that's worse than you would normally encounter on an average, and then let you get out, and then anything less than that in a real situation you should be able to conquer. So
now in my scenario, now you guys were laughing at me this morning, and rightfully so. Does it happen that way a lot, where people go the wrong direction, people panic? You guys actually had to push me out that door, otherwise I wasn't getting out of that door.
Right, which was a little bit more difficult than I thought. I didn't realize how strong you were at that point. I was like, uh-oh, there's a little bit of trouble. That's
I don't want to hear that.
We actually
that's why we have
range.
more than one instructor inside the simulator.
Thank you for that.
We usually get the whole range of personalities. Everything from, this is no big deal, and then suddenly they discovered that it is a big deal, to, I'm not really sure I'm going to get in there. Well, and part of, I think, our strength is that our instructors really aren't there to save you.
Sure.
We're there to observe what you do and give you feedback and instill enough confidence in you that you'll get back in.
See, that's the thing about this particular organization that I did not expect. You guys are you're good people, and you really care about the end result. And, you don't always get that. It's nice to know that inside that plane that we're simulating, I had somebody who was on my side, not just somebody who was, punching the time clock, which is huge, I think.
It's kind of funny you hit on that point, because for us, and we joke about this all the time, if you're in this business and you're just punching a clock, you're in the wrong business.
Right.
Because we really are affecting people's lives.
It's a great thing that you guys do, and we'll get into that. I want to ask you a couple of questions about why it is that you do what you do. But you get in that scenario, and like you said, some people no big deal. Some people, I'm the king of the world, no problem. Who does better in that scenario?
Well,
usually,
our training is designed for a person that is apprehensive in the water that can't swim.
Right.
It's designed to make sure that person doesn't fall through the cracks. That person needs to be trained more than anybody.
Sure.
So it's designed to catch that person and provides individualized attention to help them get through the training. The other people, if they groove on through, they groove on through.
Right.
Some people pick it up quickly, some people don't. But our crawl, walk, run methodology, where your first run is, you went into the water with the exit off.
Yeah.
And that's why we do that, because as you experience, you can get really disoriented upside down underwater.
Unbelievable.
Even sitting right next to an open door.
Now, I'll ask you three. You all went in there. None of you got disoriented like that when you went under
Absolutely. The first time I
you did?
I got completely
Really?
disoriented. Yes, and I told them, if this is a requirement for working here, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to accomplish
and
it.
I got in and I said, this was fun. And the guy who was training me said, you're not right.
We do have a safety protocol, a series of protocols that we go through. It's basically triple redundancy, just like our equipment, where and you saw the knife that I had in my sleeve.
Yeah, cut me out of that, baby.
Well, if it came to it, we've never had to do that.
All right.
To the point where we have an emergency procedure that we just raise the simulator out of the water and get your airway above the
water.
Oh, okay. So it's pretty simple. It's very safe.
Sure.
We've done it. Like I said, we trained over the past 9 years, 54,000 Marines, I think.
About 8,000 Army personnel and probably about 10 to 12,000 civilians.
Yeah, you were telling me an amazing amount of military people that you guys train over there. How does this actually impact people out there on a daily basis? How many people actually come through the place? The schedule's nonstop. You got people in there every day. It boggles my mind that there are that many people out there who go through this.
Well, and they are. And actually, one of the things you may not have realized, too, though, but we have sites all over the world. Yeah. We do this all over the world. And the type of machine that you got in yesterday, we actually have about 95 of those in about 27 different countries right now. So, yeah, we have an impact daily, globally, on the lives of a lot of people. And it's funny that you asked the question a minute ago about why do you do what you do?
Yeah.
And actually, Maria, Richard, and myself, even though we spend a lot of time in our offices, we get in the water all the time.
Right.
We have a lot of administrative things to do, but we spend a lot of time in there. And one of the things we always ask our students is, do you know why you're doing what you're doing?
Sure.
And if you don't, then we stop. And that's the whole point. They need to know why they're doing what they're doing. And one of the things that I always preach, too, is we don't just instruct, we instill confidence.
Yep.
And if you hadn't had the confidence, you wouldn't have got back in, I don't think.
No, listen, I'm not going to lie to you. The first time I got in there and had a problem getting out, I was scared to death to get back in there the second time, and I won't lie about that. But like again, you guys gave the confidence to me that it was going to be okay with a different scenario.
And hopefully you take that and use it in other areas and things like that. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you can instill that type of confidence into Nick and bring him in. I don't know, but
because the skirt will never come off, Nick.
But it's an interesting point. The military guys come through because for them it's required.
Yeah.
But all of the civilians guys that come through, they come through because their companies or they as individuals have recognized that there is value to this. If a company is going to invest in a pilot or a crew member, why wouldn't they invest in the additional 1 day of training to give them skills to save them?
Sure. Yeah. How often does somebody come back to you and say, you know what, something happened, I ditched the plan, and
more often than you think. It's funny because on Friday's show, you were talking about guys getting shot in Iraq or whatnot, and coming through our training and saying, I don't want to do this.
Right.
We have that quite a bit. And they want to quit. They don't want to go through it. And we have to really put in the instruction and spend some time with them and let them know why they're doing it. But to answer your question right there, we've had that several times. Within the last month, we had the NYPD guys that were in the ditching several months ago come back through. And they had been through our course before. Matter of fact, one of them was my student. We were talking about it as we were going underwater. And he was telling me that the training came back as he was going into the water. Hey, what do I do?
Right.
And the first thing he actually did was the wrong thing. He released his seatbelt and realized it, and all of a sudden he grabbed himself, and the training came back to him. And that's what we want. There's a little chip in the back of your head that's got to click on with a little bit of that training, and that's what happened to him. And we've had that quite a few times. We've actually had, I believe it was several years ago, Maria, that one of the individuals that flew his helicopter to our training on his way home ditched right after he left our training.
And his biggest commentary was that training was scarier than the actual event because for training, he had imagined all these things in his head and it was stressful.
Right.
He left the facility with confidence, with the skills. He ditched his helicopter. He's like, no big deal. It was great.
How often does this come into play? How many scenarios will you go through before somebody receives a certificate? Is it 4? Is it 8? Is it 10?
Well, we have different training programs, different programs of instruction. It just depends, but we have it goes from basic, but the minimum number of runs you could do to get a basic certification where you are just holding your breath to get out is 4 to 5, depending on how well you do that. We run the gamut, different orientations of the aircraft. It might be a straight in like you did. It might be an off angle, or it might be a complete inversion. But it just depends on the training program, and it depends on their aircraft. Our training is geared